What is up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Superdraft Breakdown Show. If you haven't seen this before, I'm going to be giving you some of my favorite picks over on Superdraft for this NBA slate today on Friday, February 19th. If you haven't signed up for Superdraft yet, making bad life choices. Sign up using the promo code GRINDERS. Get a free 100% deposit or 50% deposit bonus up to $500 plus a $50 instant bonus. That's an instant bonus you can just throw and play through it, and the money is yours to do whatever you want with it. So it's a fantastic deposit bonus. Absolutely get signed up for overlay over there. And they just partnered with Caesars Entertainment. Yes, the same Caesars Entertainment that brought you Caesars Palace over in Las Vegas. 45 different resorts across the U.S. So you're going to be earning tier points, earning rewards points that you can use for nice little suites, nice little vacations all across the U.S. It's an absolutely fantastic partnership. One of the best ways to get status if you are a DFS player. So get signed up for that, and they will be running a raffle to get 100,000 Caesars Entertainment points. Yes, that's equal to $1,000 at any of the Caesars properties. So get on in, sign up using promo code Grinders, and get some of this free money. And if you're worried about research, don't worry. I'm pretty much doing everything. We're going to cover every single part of today's NBA slate. Nice part about Superdraft, they don't start at the same time as lock for other sites. So the 7 p.m. lock for DraftKings FanDuel doesn't matter because 7:30 is the lock over on Superdraft. They avoid the first two games, so you have a little bit more time to set your lineups. Don't have to worry as much about those late scratches because also they have a multiplier format. You can play anyone you want, anyone and everyone you want in every single slate. You just throw in 7 players and however many points they get, multiplied by the multiplier is how many points they end up with. So no salary cap, no 2v2 swaps. It's just 1v1 swaps all across. Someone gets ruled out 2 minutes before game time. You don't have to worry about switching your lineups out or finding a direct pivot because everyone is a direct pivot. You just go mass player swap over to the player you want, and boom, it's done. Spending time with your family? Well, it's only 1 or 2 minute edits. All you have to do is have the Rotogrinders alerts or whatever alerts you want, but the Rotogrinders is the best, and it tells you who's out, and then you just pivot immediately. Or you can do extra research, get even more of an edge against all those people that are directly popping over from someone like Draymond over Toscano Anderson. You can get a little bit of an edge on the field by putting in a little extra time. But let's get down to the breakdown here. It's a nice little 7-game slate, I believe, with the first 2 games being off. So we got plenty of options to pick from, a few mispricings, a few mismatched multipliers, and a few guys that I think can do great in tournaments. Let's start off with the center position. You get 3 guards, 3 forwards, 1 center. So the center spot is very important. There's going to be ownership spread all over the place. It's an interesting spot here because Embiid immediately jumps off the page here. As you can see, I made a nice little spreadsheet, imported in the Superdraft stuff, put in the RG projections, and multiplied them by the multiplier. So Embiid, I believe, is pegged for around 54 points, 55 points over on RG for Superdraft scoring. And at a 1.15x multiplier, ends up his median floor, 64.68. That is by far the highest on the slate here. We see his median, his floor, his ceiling, his median, all fantastic spots. A guy that I probably don't want to avoid too much. Lineups where I'm having 0 Embiid is when I'm not bringing it back with anyone and when I'm expecting a blowout. Even in a blowout, though, he can get there. So in blue, you see that he's highlighted, and the other guys in green. Blue is more of my cash game and tournament core. Like cash game, the guys that I'm absolutely throwing in. So a very little chance of failing. You kind of want 60-plus points out of everyone in your lineup every single night. Like obviously you want guys more, but 60 is kind of what you're going for. So any guy that you don't think has a chance to get 60, you just don't want in your lineups. You need a guy with at least a ceiling of probably 70 in any given spot. And I'm not talking about 20 percentile ceiling. I'm talking about 10 to take down some of these GPPs. So every single lineup spot is valuable. Most of the times, you're not going to win a GPP unless you have everyone in your lineup having a good game. Doesn't have to be a great game, but you need pretty much everyone in your lineup to have a good game, or some random 2x guy to go off for 100 points over on Superdraft. And he can kind of make up if you have 1 or 2 falters in the rest of your draft. But it's all dependent on ownership. Every single night's different. Tonight, I think Embiid's a fantastic play, but probably a guy I'll be using in the forward position. Plumlee, another guy, been crushing it recently. Multiplier is way too high at 1.7. He's a guy that I might end up using in cash, might end up using in tournaments, but I'm still kind of up in the air. He definitely has some upside. It's definitely a good matchup going up against Memphis, and this multiplier is too high. We see his mean projection of 56, has a ceiling of 79, one of the higher ones on the slate. Same thing with Joe Val over here. We know that he can absolutely crush on a point minute per minute basis. And if he gets up into the 30 point or 30-minute range, he can go for a 60 points before his multiplier, 1.45. So that would be closer to 85 points. So he's a guy that's definitely in play with tournaments. My favorite tournament play right here for center is Clint Capela. He's going up against Boston. He's been getting more run recently. 1.3x multiplier is not high enough if he's going to end up with 35 minutes. Could end up with 20 points, could end up with 20 rebounds. And the nice part about FanDuel scoring or Superdraft scoring is it's a mix between FanDuel and DraftKings. DraftKings, same as the 3.5 points for a three-pointer. Rebounds, assists are the same, and you get the triple-double and double-double bonuses. Whereas it's a little bit similar like FanDuel because it's 3 points for a block, 3 points for a steal, -1 points for a turnover. So a guy like Capela, who has gotten a triple-double, I believe, with 10 blocks, can get you a whole lot of points at 1.3x multiplier. He gets 10 blocks. That's an extra 40 points. Again, not expecting that. But 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks and steals, like that's definitely a huge amount extra because of the 3 points plus the multiplier. So guys get a little bit more volatile with their scores because of those stocks and definitely offer some more upside. But Capela, my favorite guy on the board probably for GPPs. John Collins, decent multiplier, not bad. Cat finally getting up into the high 30s in minutes, decent matchup going up against Toronto. 1.15x multiplier. He kind of makes a nice pivot off of Embiid. So if you want to go with a little bit less ownership, Embiid's probably going to come in around 60%, 50%. You can swap down to Karl Anthony Towns. DeAndre Ayton, not quite my favorite, but a guy that can definitely get there going up against New Orleans. Steven Adams is most likely out for this matchup. So at a 1.45x multiplier, a guy that can get a few blocks, he's definitely in play for tournaments. Horford, another guy who's been crushing. We don't know exactly how SGA being back is going to fully expect him. I expect a downtick in usage. But at 1.55x multiplier, he definitely offers you a bit of upside. More of a guy that I'll be using if the OKC Milwaukee game stays close. So I'd be bringing it back with Giannis or Middleton. They're both good tournament and one of them cash game plays in their own right. But I need a full complement of minutes in order for it to be a spot where he's really worth it. Outside of that, we have some guys that I don't know if will quite make the cut. Gobert, always in play for tournaments. Decent multiplier, but not quite as good as these other guys. There's only so many centers I can play. Willie Hernangomez, great multiplier, but don't know if I want to play him because he's just not giving you as much of a floor and not much of a median outcome. He does have a huge ceiling because of his huge multiplier, but it's a little bit more volatile than other ones. Chris Boucher, multiplier, a little low. Can he get there? Yes. Willie, probably not. Daniel Tice is a guy that I think you can use, but probably not a great play. So the center position, it's really these guys right here that you want. These are the ones that I think you stick with in tournaments. Maybe Gobert, maybe Willie Hernangomez. But most. All right, let's move on over to the forward position here. Definitely got a lot of options here. There are a lot of guys that have the potential to crush in tournaments. So we look at just the ceiling projections. As you can see, we got all the way down to here, 20 plus guys that can get you there in tournaments. Let's start off with Levine and Zion, who are my probably cash game plays. You can make an argument for Plumlee and Chris Middleton. You can throw Zach LaVine at the guard position because he's multi-position eligible. Giannis, Embiid, also guys that you can throw in. Giannis, I'm a little bit worried about the back-to-back. I'm a little bit worried about the potential blowout. But even at a 1x multiplier, he's been so good recently that he probably ends up getting there, probably gives you a pretty good floor and a pretty good ceiling and a pretty good median outcome. The 1x multiplier is just tough. So more of a guy will be looking at cash than tournaments, but he's definitely one of the cash game core guys I think you can throw in. It's just tough figuring out where you want to throw Embiid at the forward or center and where you want to throw in Levine at the guard or the forward. But these are kind of the cash game guys, in my opinion. I'm not going to argue with Plumlee. Definitely a high enough multiplier. May end up in him on cash. Middleton is just kind of dead to me after the last 3-4 games. He's just crushed me. He hasn't been playing the same. So Middleton, even at a 1.4x multiplier, I'm more saving him for tournaments. I'm more saving him for when I'm bringing it back with Horford or bringing it back with SGA, one of those guys. We see SGA has a nice little multiplier of 1.35. Offers you a little bit lower floor because of the potential blow up. But if this game stays close, he can definitely get you there. So he's definitely in play for tournaments. Ben Simmons, good matchup going up against Chicago. One of the faster paced teams, horrible defense. Simmons, 1.3x multiplier in play. Ingram, 1.35x multiplier. We'll get to the Clippers guys a little later because some of them are interesting. If Paul George is out and Kawhi's in play. If Kawhi's out and Paul George is in play. If both of them are out, we definitely have some value, some high multiplier guys like Lou Will, like Reggie Jackson, like Marcus Morris. They can get there even in a tough matchup versus Utah. The spread has been pretty close since it opened. So it makes me think that one of Paul George or Kawhi are going to end up playing. So something to look out for, something to watch for, and it's the last game of the night. So you can always make a pivot over to them if you are going to have to make up some points. So something to watch out for. Siakam, 1.3x multiplier. Really like him in tournaments. Lowry is already ruled out, I believe, and it's a matchup versus Minnesota. Obviously, a good matchup. Siakam has a huge ceiling, a guy that I will be using a decent amount of. Tatum, he's fine. If Brown gets ruled out, he comes more in play, but a low multiplier kind of makes me want to stay away from him. Same thing with Brown, low enough multiplier where I'm probably not using him. Jeremy Grant had a big game the other night, and a 1.35x multiplier is probably still in play, but not my favorite play. Saddiq Bey is the interesting one. So his floor is super low. His ceiling is super high. The guy can get hot from beyond the arc. He's been crushing it recently. Last game, not so good, but prior to that, 7 of 9 from 3, and then I think 7 of 7 from 3. So he's been shooting lights out. A matchup versus Memphis is a pretty decent one. His multiplier is high enough where he still can get you a double-double. He can get 10 boards. He's been getting a lot more run without Blake Griffin there in the starting lineup, a guy that can crush and has a huge range of outcomes at a 1.9x multiplier. So he's a guy that I will think about using, may end up with a decent amount of them in tournaments, kind of undecided at this point in the day. We've already gone through the other center guys, and you see how far they're down, which is why I'm thinking about using them more at the forward position than the center position, because I want to get one of those other good centers in there. After that, we got guys that may or may not be in play, kind of is up in the air. Tobias Harris, if Embiid or Simmons gets ruled out, a guy that you can play. George, like I said, a guy you can play if Kawhi is ruled out. Basley with SGA back doesn't really make the cut. Same thing with Bogdanovich. I'm not really sure where Ingles is at, but he's a guy that you could potentially play if Conley's ruled out. But this is kind of where we're at with this set with the forward position. There's so many good plays that you can take one of these guys at super low ownership, hope for the best, but you're probably better off getting some of these safer plays with bigger ceilings, just because that's kind of the way things go. You need some upside, but you also need safety, because if one of your guys ends up having a bad night, you're kind of just done for in the big field tournaments. And even in cash, like you miss on one of the elite spots here, then you're just kind of playing a huge amount of catch up and you're just out of it. Probably not going to cash on a given night. I got lucky last night, played Middleton, still managed to make it out because I had one pivot away from Whiteside over to Bam, and that made up the extra 20 points that I was behind because I didn't play Van Vliet or because I played Middleton. So something to watch out for. Guard, there's a bunch of good picks. Guard, like we see all the way down here, we have Rubio with a 70-point ceiling. We have Anderson with a 60-point ceiling. Like we have Batum all the way down here. Kawhi ends up missing. So there's tons of good guard plays too. The core is Van Vliet. We know what he can do without Lowry in the lineup. 1.3x multiplier, definitely too low. Same thing with Levine. Just been eating up the usage. Not an easy matchup, but a guy that can go for 50, 60 points in any matchup with that multiplier out on. Huge ceiling and a decent floor. Same thing with Trae Young, 1.25x, way too low of a multiplier. Devin Booker, 1.45x, way too low of a multiplier. And Ja Morant, 1.5. Like, he can get 50 points on any given night. He is my favorite play. I don't know if I'll end up with him in cash, but I'm going to end up with a ton of him in tournaments. And he's a great guy because he can bring it back with Plumlee. You can bring it back with Saddiq Bey. You can bring it back with Jeremy Grant. And you can add Valanciunas in because Morant can absolutely get it done with a double-double with assists and get 14-plus assists. He's not scoring a ton of real-life points. He can still get there in fantasy with his big multiplier. After that, we get a lot of good tournament plays here. Norman Powell, without Lowry in there, should play a boatload of minutes. We saw him put up 79 Superdraft points on Superdraft last night with this multiplier of 1.75x. They didn't adjust it. Magic versus Minnesota. He's going to shoot. He's a guy that I think is going to be one of my tournament staples. SGA, Tatum, Simmons already kind of went through it. Chris Paul doesn't make the top tier for plays at a 1.35x multiplier, but definitely is a guy in tournaments. Delon Wright, same thing. He's going to play high 30s minutes if this game stays close. A guy that I can also bring it back with Morant, but not quite my favorite play. Malik Beasley, been playing really well recently, putting up around 40 points a game, and a match versus Toronto is not bad. So he's a guy that I will probably have a few shares of in tournaments if I'm playing Siakam, if I'm playing Grambly, if I'm playing Powell, because I'm hoping on that game staying close. Kemba, if Jaylen Brown gets ruled out, he'll get a bump. He's been playing right around 30 minutes, can get up to 32, 33 minutes. And this multiplier matchup versus Atlanta, horrible Trae Young defense, has a bunch of upside too. Jaylen Brown, fine, not great. Donovan Mitchell, I think, has a bit more upside, especially if Conley gets ruled out. He's put up some 50-point games at a 1.3x multiplier. If Conley's ruled out, or if you just need a late game hammer, or if you have some room to make up, he's a guy that I think is one of the better tournament plays. Anthony Edwards, another guy, had a horrific shooting night the other night. 3 for 15 from the field, but he's been putting up 15-plus shot attempts in every single game. He gets hot. Match versus Toronto, 1.7x multiplier. He offers you one of the highest ceilings on the slate, and I don't expect him to come in at very high ownership. After that, we get to a little bit tougher guys like Lonzo Ball is fine. Kobe White is fine. DiVincenzo, Rubio is fine. They can all get hot. Higher multipliers, they can get you there, but not guys that I'm going to have in my core. Probably have bits and pieces, mostly as bring back spots, but just not fully getting it done. Kyle Anderson, I think, is a guy that you can definitely use in tournaments. 1.55x multiplier is a little bit lower than I would want it to be, but again, we already talked about it. Those steals being worth 3 points and those blocks being worth 3 points. He's had multiple 4+ steal games, multiple 5+ stock games. 1.5x multiplier, he gets 5 steals/blocks. That is 15 points times 1.5. So over 22 extra points, and he's been shooting a decent amount recently. Matchup versus Detroit. Detroit, not a great defensive team, not a great team overall. So he definitely has the ability to crush there. A guy that you can throw in with Ja Morant. And there's 4 different guys who can play over on Detroit because they're running a very condensed rotation. So any one of those guys can end up with a big night any given night. Kyle Anderson's a good tournament play that you should consider and should come in at very low ownership while being able to roster at the forward or at the guard position. Keep looking down. We kind of just run out things. Dylan Brooks can get hot. Seth Curry can get hot without Milton. May play a bunch of minutes. Lou Will, more of a guy that's in play if Kawhi or George or both are ruled out and he gets the starting nod. Probably won't know that till later, but again, I already kind of told you, you can swap off anyone at any given time as long as the game hasn't started, and they're all 1v1 swaps. So he's a guy that's definitely more in play in tournaments. Just looking through things, not really seeing too much in the rest of it. Just kind of those are my core. Like if you're playing cash, play 3 of these guys in your guard position. Going over to forward, you want to play Embiid either at forward or center, and then probably Levine, Zion, Plumlee, one of those guys in your forward position for cash. Center, you want to use Plumlee or Embiid, or if you're like me, I might end up with Capela just because of how much run he's been getting. But that's pretty much today's slate. That's where we're at. That is Superdraft. Again, get signed up using the promo code Grinders. Get one of the best deposit bonuses in the industry. Plus, you got overlay on top of that. So, yes, you could end up losing money, but this is one of the most positive EV spots you can possibly get. That's it. Let me know in the comment section on Rotogrinders or on YouTube. Anything you want to see on this. Hopefully, we'll have lineup HQ set up for it at some point in the future, but that's just kind of Superdraft. Now you know, get on there, play. Again, sign up using promo code Rotogrinders. It's been fun. Good luck tonight. I'm out of here. See you, kids.